Practicing scenario writing, and it's mostly actually aspect writing of characters in those scenarios, trying to sort of contour them and find the textures. As Woody Allen would say, texturing stuff, or uh, Frank Zappa, making structures, sculptures out of sound. But the life and opinions of Tristram Shandy, which begat Shandification as a term from Mr. Beatung on YouTube, who cited it as one of Fallout's main merits, is Shandification, whereby characters, the environment has a life of its own, which I very much believe is something essential for world building, which is should be a large part of plot building, you know, and a good sort of plot with, a bit of a hyperlink element, hyperlink cinema like Pulp Fiction, different characters, different sort of pouring into each other. Although, if you think about it, that's even more singular of an event than a lot of things where people, vent their own thing. So it has even more of the prophecy, prophetical, demiurge part of it, and Cthulhu organs, Lovecraftian shit that could also be seen as hyperlink, and the fact that Lovecraft, you know, was originally like wops and Italians. I don't even know, but basically these racist stereotypes, and then this sort of discrimination was used for horror. Sort of how horror and discrimination have like love and hate. They're two sides of the same coin. And then naturally, your main conclusion from this sort of thing is that all these gods are more these sort of hyperlink shit, and hyperlink cinema, like a Snatch, that British movie, or most TV shows have this nature, is going along the lines of how many examples can you give to cite your text. A lot of stuff goes on examples. Fiction goes on description, but a lot of fiction, goes on as much description as is needed to fit into the situation what you want to act out and who you want to get inside of through the sort of description of it. That's a sort of omniscient nature of a third person perspective that you don't get from a first person perspective. Like Percy Jackson, first person. I have ADHD. Fucking, I have dyslexia. Dyslexia is apparently the opposite of autism. And that fact, I guess you could use to say, dyslexia, this confusion of fucking symbols, is transparently, imminently comparable to this hyperlink situation where you treat it dysfunctionally or you don't even treat it, And hyperlink is this sort of supersession of the personal, but it is personal. It is hypersocial. It is hyper extroverted, beyond extroverted, in fact. And it is much in the way of things what autists do. They relate to people, but they relate to people in after the fact of expression, feeling, personality, conflicts, trying to impress, trying to be social, all this basic stuff, which can get very, very boring because it is so, transparent what the efforts are, as compared to the opacity and somewhat schizophrenic allure of these things regarding media and all the sort of mathematical implications all these references can have, transcontextuality, what in as far qualities represent is quantity, is this sort of, four-dimensional time space manifold, but it gets at before those were measurements, what do you see in them? And okay, second part of the video. Second part of the video. I watched a video recently I believe by Thomas Kraft, which said how science fiction is largely, it doesn't actually deal with science. In media, science isn't actually used, it's methodical, it's detached nature isn't used for the effect of storytelling because that's doesn't seem like engaging storytelling, but oftentimes, that sort of mm, moral event horizon, or better said, generally the ticking clock of a story, or the fault where fault lines isn't like in Tyler the Creator's Earthquake. It's my fault. Is it his fault in a sort of interpersonal way, or is it just a fault? Happening naturally. It's a character sense of things, which character has this natural thing to it, which is beyond even subjectivity, which is because character and the animal self, the Freudian archetypes, and as far as we can put these in picture and be all romantic and stuff, then the romantic goes to the analytic, the anti-romantic, and it all is in this clusterfuck of scholastic tradition, stochastic tradition. It's all confusing, and it's all words not serving their own function. Words are mathematical even when they are descriptive, when they are embellished, when they are flourishing. Third part of the video. Third part of the video, because that second part of the video wasn't very well structured. It didn't really efface things. It didn't really get things out. Is trying to get back to that Shandification narrative. Okay. Shandification. I've been trying to get at the individual influences that I have. A lot of that is nostalgic, frankly, and pure nostalgia doesn't necessarily serve anything. So I try to flee away from that. I try to always get new influences, but and as far as that's also, you know, secondhand nostalgia, I'm careful about that. If you get new influences and it doesn't really affect something different, that's equivalent to just looking at pop culture and seeing, oh, this is like that, Uh, some blue vampire is like he has black hair anime like another guy. But that's why the indices are there. There's a natural catalog sense to this stuff. And you can see this as why category theory and its sort of grouping has this controversy to it. Because that aspect of choice is it faded? Is it, you know, in there, or is it out here? Can we choose? Is choice a propelling thing, or is choice a dissociating thing that gets us away from ourselves? Now, that's the end of this video, as far as I'm concerned. Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy. It's a great book. A bunch of bullshit, a lot of Quixote flair. Fuck Quixotic. So fucking read it. And watch Mr. Beaton, Thomas Kraft, analysis. You can do this. We can make sense of inane bullshit. Yeah.